Hello and welcome to episode 3 of this Let's Play series. In the last episode, we built this thing that we could see in front of... I have complicated feelings about this factory. It is both a mess and magnificent. Yeah, this is what we did last episode. Not just this. This island is our quality island, so this is producing all of our quality things, sorting the quality things, and then divvying them up. We've also got another island, which is, doing the standard Fulgora activity of just sifting through scrap, producing stuff, sorting it, scrapping it, round and round and round it goes. Just a big factory, two big factories, could probably have chosen some bigger islands, but we got the job done. We are producing quality, which is what we came here to do. What we need to do now is we need to go to Vulcanus and do the exact same thing, except not on an island, not confined by oil. On Vulcanus, we can do what we like. Got a free hand. So that's what we're going to do. Vulcanus, quality. I'm just getting myself all up in a tizzy about this freaking factory. In order to in order to explain how and why, it's a little bit tricky. All right, so I made a video, quite a while ago now, to be honest, 6 months or so ago, a quality video where I set out a principle for a full Monty principle, you know, how we could take quality to the ultimate level. And I suppose if you haven't seen that video, what you need to know is that what we kind of end up with is a situation where we have individual qualities on individual belts. So if we had, say, 4 belts for this full Monty system, I would probably go for something along the lines of 2 dot... Oh, you didn't want to do that. You don't want to do anything 2 dot. Okay. 2 dot. 3 dot. And then probably 4 and 5 dot. Oh, for God's sake. 4 and 5 dot mix on the same belt. Because we're not going to get many of those. It really doesn't make much sense to put them all on an individual belt. I mean, in that full Monty video, that's what I did. You know, in my last factory, that's how I did it. I'd had an individual belt for Legendary, and it's probably not worthwhile. So if I had 4 belts, I know we've got 4 qualities here, and it kind of makes sense. We've got 4 qualities, 1 quality for each belt. But 2 dot is just so overwhelming that it makes more sense to do it this way. And in terms of what we're doing here at the moment on Vulcanus, I'm doing sushi. So I've essentially got 2 belts with any quality on them. You know, it could be anything. Whatever the factory gives us, we have to deal with it. Now, the kind of the boundary between where each approach becomes relevant and where it doesn't is in these belts, in 4 belts. If we have, say, 4 belts of something, then we probably want to use some kind of full Monty approach. If we only have 2 belts of something, then it makes a lot more sense to do it sushi, because it's, you know, 4 belts it's only 2 belts for this one ingredient, but, you know, you spread it over 15, 20 different ingredients, these belts start adding up. So if we have the space to do a full Monty and we have the throughput to justify it, I suppose, then we want more belts. But if we're doing sushi, then we're doing 2 belts. The 2 belts is relevant because, you know, every material needs to go to every process in sequence, more or less. So if we have 2 belts, then we can put a splitter on it, divert all of the material to the factory process, and then join whatever we don't use in that factory process back, and we can kind of use this little belt in the middle as an overflow. So if anything, if we've got more than 2 belts worth of stuff here entering the system, then more than 1 belt, sorry, then whatever's over that 1 belt can just flow down and it just won't go. It's an inefficiency. Like, ideally we want all of the material to go to this process, but, you know, if we've got too much material, that's just the nature of the beast. We can't avoid having too much material. So I tend to think if we're doing sushi, then 2 belts is the limit, because this is neat. Your splitter has 2 inputs. You know, it just makes sense. But if we have 4 belts of something, we probably want to do full Monty. So the relevance to this in this factory is copper cables. I mean, at this point, copper cables are like my personal freaking nemesis. So I've allowed for 4 conveyor belts in this system, in this factory, for copper cables. So I've kind of gone for... This isn't the distribution of the qualities. Hold on a second. Oh, there is this. I actually put it in here somewhere because it becomes relevant. Here we go. So this is the distribution of stuff. You know, I laid out the 4 belts that we had before. This is the 4 belt distribution that I'm going to have here. It's exactly as I laid out over there. And... it's all, you know, it's all well and good just laying these 2 systems on top of each other, because now we've got one system for copper cables, and everything else in this little factory is a completely different system, works completely differently. You know, if we have sushi on a conveyor belt, every time it passes through a process, it has to run itself through one of these filters, where we filter off the quality that we need. Anything we don't need, we take away, and we take it to the next factory process, or to be scrapped, or whatever. But that's not what if it's not sushi, which these copper cables are now not, then we don't need to pass it through this filter. But this whole factory is based on the geometry and the thing, it's all based on these filters. So how do I get these two to interact with each other? Because this is iron bar. We're trying to make power poles and stuff, so we need iron bars in here to make this stuff. I want to mix. Also, we've got 4 ingredients in here because I'm trying to do substations as well. So we've got copper cables, steel, iron bar, and we've got red circuit boards. 4 ingredients. We've got 2 conveyor belts. They're going to be split, 1 ingredient on each side. So I don't have any play. I don't have any space to bring in these copper cables in a dedicated way. So that's how we've ended up with this, which is whereby the iron bars pass through the filter. We still get the excess being removed. We still get the filtering effects. But once it gets to here, we then join it with our infinite flow. Now, when it comes to the full Monty, I suppose where we are, because this isn't passing through a filter, we are now in a situation where we want this conveyor belt to be full. I'm still... This is the problem, this is the tizzy that I'm having. My mind is set up purely to deal with sushi. And I'm very in the flow of how the sushi works. I suppose what I'm ultimately doing is I'm pushing the limits. I've not tried this before. I've not tried doing the full Monty approach laid on top of the sushi approach. And how these things kind of interact. I haven't done this before, so this is new. When you just don't know whether you've got the solution or not. Like, it feels like what I've built is right. But I've not done it before. I just feel like... Anyway, where this tizzy really, really comes to fruition is frickin' green circuit boards. Because now that we've got copper cable... Okay, let's take this through the principle of green circuit boards in this factory. Like, copper cables, the only things that copper cables need to go to are power poles and green circuit boards. And there's a reason why I've built the power poles above the green circuit boards. Is because the way this factory works is that all the material comes in, it goes through every process, snakes its way. So only when it gets to the end of the line do we know that none of the processes before it needed that thing. So we want copper cables to go here first, and then if copper cables aren't needed in here, then we want to send them all to green circuit boards. And in an ideal world, we want to turn every copper cable into a green circuit board. We don't want to have any copper cables left over. I mean, that presupposes that we have enough iron plate to match it, which, that's probably the limiting factor. But that's in an ideal world, that's what we want. And so I'm trying to, this is actually the reason why I'm doing full Monty with the copper cables, is so that I can do something a little bit more serious with the circuit boards, because these things are absolutely critical for this whole factory. Now, I had a previous version of this factory where I put circuit boards right at the beginning of the factory. And what it essentially did was it sucked up the red circuit board process would suck up every green circuit board that went past its way, and then whatever green circuit boards came out of red circuit boards would go into blue circuit boards, and blue circuit boards would hoover up everything that came its way. And so anything that followed after the factory, after those circuit boards, never had any circuit boards because this thing was eating them up. And they weren't going to useful processes, they were just going into more circuit boards. It's just like the only thing that exited the process was the blues. Anyway, so the fundamental structure of how things are laid out, this is one of those developments that I've kind of come about. Like we kind of, I feel like we're kind of designing the factory backwards. Like when we normally build a factory in Factorio, we start off with like iron plate, copper plate, steel plate, and then we do circuit boards. And then we work our way to a mall, and where we do a whole lot of complicated things. The progression of the factory is we start off with simple, and then we generally, as we go through the factory, they get more and more complicated. But because of the way this priority system works, we are now doing the complete opposite. So we start off with the complicated things, or at least the things that we consider the most important. So, I mean, on Vulcanus, and the same on Fulgora, to be honest, the most important thing are the planet-specific buildings that we need to build, that we can only build on this one planet. So on Fulgora, it was EM plants and recyclers. On Vulcanus, it's foundries and big mining drills. You know, that's the most important thing, so that goes in first. And then we have spaceship parts. I generally put this as quite early on because I want, you know, if I want to build a spaceship, I want all of those parts ready. Everything else that follows in this factory, I can kind of wait. You know, generally, you know, I've got 1. versions I can use, but 3. 4. 5. asteroid collectors are so damn useful. Anyway, as we work our way through the factory, we get less and less and less important. And that's kind of this fundamental structure. So, I mean, I suppose, to get back to the story, copper cables, because of the way that I'm overlaying these two systems on top of each other, I'm not 100% confident that what I've built is going to work. It's an experiment. We're going to see if this works. Now, we're going to carry on, to be honest. We've got a whole load of other processes to add here. I need red circuit boards, blue circuit boards. In fact, I made a whole list. Engines, electric engines we've done. Low density structure I've done. Green circuit boards I've done. So I need blue, red. I need a process which takes all of the copper plate that we're making here and turns it into more copper cables. I need something that turns the stone excess into blocks, and I need some batteries. And then once all of these things are done, we're going to get into the scrappage. Now, to be honest, this is actually the first time I've built one of these things where I've been able to more or less get it in a continuous straight line. Every other time I've tried to build one of these things, it's had to dodge its way around a lava pit, or, you know, it's had to scooch its way around something. Something's been in the way along somewhere. It's a beast. But, you know, I kind of thought, well, you know, if I'm taking this seriously, then I may as well do everything. So I'm doing. Here we are. I'm doing legendary quality flamethrowers. I don't have any intention to use flamethrowers anywhere, really. I mean, they might come in useful on novice, I suppose. But, you know, I'm doing pumps, and the recipe for pumps and flamethrowers is so damn similar that if I'm doing pumps, then I may as well do flamethrowers. So I'm doing it, you know, I'm doing nuclear power plants, I'm doing centrifuges, I'm doing radars, I'm doing, what other funky stuff am I doing? Where have I hidden all these things? Laser turrets, logistic robots and construction robots, they're going to be super duper useful. Furnaces, roboports, there's my centrifuges and nuclear power plants. Turrets, radar, inserters. And then this is my heinously horrible heating tower. I kind of had some thought about when I said that. You know, to be honest, assembly machines are more difficult. They're more heinous. It's just that I've done assembly machines more times because they're more fundamental. They're more important. So I've done that 3 or 4 times. Heating towers is still... Anyway, by the by. What we're going to do now is we're just going to carry on. We're going to carry on with these things. We're going to do... And then we're going to get to the end and we're going to recycle everything. And then we're going to turn it on. Which generally involves filling it with quality modules. I mean, there's a question. There's the conversation. Let's have a look at Fulgora. Fulgora's struggling a little bit. I mean, define struggle, I suppose. We have too much quality. Too many quality things. Or not enough trains, or trains that aren't big enough. You know, we probably need trains that are like twice the size. We probably need like an extra 2 more storage carts that delivers this stuff, transports this stuff. I mean, this kind of came about because I upgraded the modules in the recyclers, so this is the best quality module we have available right now. I filled it up with this, and almost like instantly, I had 2 dot in there before, and it was performing okay, and then I put 3 dot in here, and this happened. I mean, to be honest, I'm already throttling. I've already knocked down the amount of scrap this thing is producing by a quarter, and still we have problems. I mean, I mean, I go back to what I just said a moment ago. It would define problems because, I mean, this is actually the ideal scenario. You know, we are bottlenecked on quality. I mean, we're bottlenecked on trains, but we're bottlenecked on quality. We've got too much quality. That's hardly a bad situation to be in. So I guess we're just not processing as much scrap on this island as we could do. But this is all 1-dot stuff, you know, really. These 4 belts are suddenly a whole lot more emptier than they were. But on our quality islands, I mean, we're pretty much full of everything other than quality modules. Every box in here that I've put, we're full of. You know, we don't need no more solar panels. We don't need no more Tesla turrets. We don't need... Oh, do we need EM plants and recyclers? We're good. EM plants. There's a few more EM plants, maybe. But, you know, pretty much everything else. We've got all of our spaceship parts. You know, asteroid collectors. I always look at asteroid collectors like a key one for me. So, although this other 1-dot island is a little bit broken, I mean, it's a little bit broken. We've got the quality things that I was looking for, other than the quality modules. Let's have a quick look in quality modules. Yeah. You know, we're producing some good stuff. I'm not necessarily too concerned. I mean, the annoying thing is that this isn't a problem that I can fix. Normally these problems on Fulgora I can fix with stack inserters, but this is not a problem that I can fix with stack inserters. This is a problem that I can only fix with foundations. Because I can't get any more trains. Here's going to put in longer trains in here would be relatively straightforward, and the train stations in here could be built. You know, I can stretch it. That's not a problem either, except that we'd be building on the oil ocean. So that's some development that needs to happen at some point in the future, is that this set of train stations needs to get bigger. But we're going to need foundations for that, so Fulgoras just have to be throttled. But, you know, it's producing all the things that we need. I've got boxes full of things I can use. If it's throttled a little bit, it's throttled a little bit. We've pushed it to the limit. We found the limit. I mean, what was it I said? I'm pretty sure I said that I want the trains to be the bottleneck. I guess I just didn't appreciate that it would be the quality trains. Anyway, that's Fulgora. Let's do some more Vulcanus. Okay then, we are qualitying so damn nicely that we are qualitying too damn nicely. I've been furiously behind the scenes trying to moderate all of the quality in the factory to try and really kind of nail down the sweet spot of what this factory can do. It's more difficult than it sounds. I took all of the... we have a problem here. So I took all of the modules out of the seed processes feeding this factory. So we stopped extracting quality from the 1-dot process with both the copper cables and the green circuit boards. So all of the quality in here, I took it out. And everything in this little you know, quotation marks, quality factory just immediately ground down to nothing. Everything that you can see here went away, and it was just like a pathetic amount of throughput, just absolutely pathetic. So I went back and I started introducing more modules to that process, and more stuff started feeding its way through. And I left it for 5 or 10 minutes, and it seemed to be doing okay. So I put more modules in, did the same, came back 10 minutes later, still doing okay. Put more modules in, and then it broke, and it broke from a place where it looked like it was at about 25% capacity. I put more modules in, and then it broke. And so the conclusion that I'm coming to is that this is the key. This is the key process. It determines everything. Like this whole copper plate, copper cable thing, it's not just a nemesis for me. It's the crux of the factory. It really is so important. Like if we can extract all of the quality cables, turn all of those quality cables and turn them into green circuit boards, and add those green circuit boards to the green circuit boards we extract from the 1-dot portion, then the yield of the factory, it's like orders of magnitude better. But each thing that we add is like accumulative for these sushi belts and for this sorting widget, because you know we get the copper cables that produces more green circuit boards, but the system experiences both of those things added together, and then the green circuit boards goes into reds, and that makes more reds, that adds more things, and eventually this loop reaches a point where it fills up. And the thing is, last time I built this factory on Vulcanus, on my multiplayer server where I was just messing around, I did 4 belts over here, and I did 4 belts over here. And obviously that meant that the widget was like half the size, and it broke on these belts. But it is now breaking on the widget, and not necessarily even just on the widget. It's that we've got more green circuit boards entering than we've got capacity for it to exit. Like we've got only 2 belts for green circuit boards to come out, and we've got more than 2 belts for green circuit boards coming in. And if we stop doing it, so that we find so that we don't have this problem, then the factory becomes pointless. This is like the key issue. I'm really thorough. This is like a sandbox for me to play around with different theories that I've had along the way. Because once you've investigated a factory like this and it breaks, you kind of reach the limit of what you can investigate. And the old factory that I did in the multiplayer server, that broke at a much earlier point, and I wasn't really able to investigate much further than that. With this one, it's clearing. I mean, that's probably because I've cleared all the freaking quality out of that system. But I'm able, because it's got a much bigger throughput, I can investigate things much more in detail and bigger numbers. And it's all just fascinating to me. The thing is, all of this is pretty academic, because once we get access to stack inserters, it's going to start stacking everything, and that will allow us to get more throughput and push in other areas. But inevitably, we are going to find a point where it reaches this point, but just with stacked belts. I feel like that's an inevitability at this point. It's going to break. Like this copper cable is just so damn powerful. And I've been thinking about it. Think of all of the copper cables that we make along the way. Every green circuit board has 3 of them. Every red circuit board, let's do this properly. Every red circuit board has 2, so that's 6. It has 10 copper cables. Every blue circuit board has 60 68. You know, if you take all of that copper cable, it's the most abundant thing in the factory. So it's the most profitable when you start putting quality into it. It does make sense. I just, what is the ultimate conclusion? I guess the ultimate conclusion, it doesn't really matter too much because this factory is designed to make the quality units. That's really all it's here to do. And it's doing that thing with varying levels of success, but it's doing that thing really, really well. A lot of these boxes are filling up really, really nicely. Now, this is not the factory that we're going to be using end game. This is just the factory we're going to use to get to the end game. You know, I'm going to want to build some final factory, and with that final factory, I'm going to want to build it with mostly legendary units. You know, it's not going to be all legendary units because there's going to be throttle points in the factory. There'll be certain places in the factory where I've got more area and I can spread the factory out a little bit better and I can get away with using lesser quality units, and there'll be other places where I need to push and I need that extra quality condensed. And, you know, so the legendary ones will be critical and I need a lot of them, and I'll use the other qualities to kind of fill in the gaps around it. But all of those units need to be made before I can start building that factory. So that's what this is here to do. It's just to get us to a point where we've got all of the things that we need. And then it's doing that really, really well. Now, my little tizzy, I kind of got over my little tizzy about copper cables. Sometimes I make something and a voice, my gut, and it tells me that's not, what are you doing? That's wrong. Or it's not, maybe not wrong, but not quite right. And I can't figure out why my gut is telling me that. And I have to go away and think about it for a little while before I can figure out why my gut is telling me that I didn't like it. And the reason why my gut was telling me I didn't like it, I figured it out, was because in laying these two systems on top of each other, you know, for the full Monty system, the advantage of the full Monty system is that we get to fill the conveyor belts with material before we scrap. You know, we are scrapping, this is the system that I've built. The full Monty system scraps the stuff at the start of the factory, and we just scrap the overflow of the material that we get. Everything else, the sushi, gets scrapped at the bottom. So this conveyor belt should stay mostly full. In fact, it's not full because I've just been playing around with the quality modules. So what I was trying to, the tizzy that I was having was where do I need to scrap these copper cables? And obviously all of the stuff on sushi gets scrapped at the bottom of the factory, and then everything in the full full Monty system, gets scrapped at the start of the factory, and then we use the factory as a buffer. So if I was ever doing this in the future with more full Monty systems, and you know, green circuit boards, they're kind of shouting at me now that maybe next time it'd be better to do 4 belts of copper cables and maybe 4 belts of green circuit boards as well. Maybe that's the inevitable solution. No, but if I ever did that, then this is what I would need to do. If I had to, I would use the bus of conveyor belts that I've got here, green circuit boards, to fill the factory with them, and then I would scrap the greens at the start of the factory and remove that section of the bit at the bottom of the factory. So that's kind of how I've dealt with them overlapping. I think this is the right way. So I've got over my tizzy. I'm mostly happy now. I mean, other than the fact that we can't really fill everything with as much quality as I want to do. You know, the thing is, on Fulgora, we are completely stopped now. I'm trying to clear out. I'll come back to this in a moment. If we go to Fulgora, I've actually got just way too many of these modules. I need to start using these modules, but if I start putting these modules anywhere, it's going to start breaking everything. Anyway, let's go back to trains. So I've, you know, this whole quality scrap problem that I was experiencing in the last episode with these trains, it's become pretty critical, to be honest. The problem is, it's not necessarily the way that I'm trying to determine whether the train is full or not. It's how I'm actually physically loading the trains themselves. I was on stream and I showed this problem to everyone on the stream, and everyone was like, "Oh, I know how to do this," and everyone started coming up with ideas, and every idea was just a little bit not quite right, didn't quite do it. And the conclusion, I'm still to come to the conclusion that it's not possible to do. So the idea is that we aren't loading full stacks of things. You know, we're just loading bits and pieces of things. So how do we control the inserters so that they only insert a full stack when we've got a full stack in these boxes? But I don't think it's possible. I think the thing is, what I'm actually doing is trying to drain this factory, these sets of train stations of all the material, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up so that it just loads the most abundant thing in the box. You know, if we count all of the things in the box and we rank them, we just load the most abundant thing. And then, you know, the idea of trying to only insert full stacks seems to be difficult, maybe impossible, but we can certainly rank them and just do the most abundant things. So, I mean, these sets of combinators mostly doing nothing, to be honest. They've been doing nothing for a long time. We now need to start thinking about how we can load this material a little bit better. But, you know, again, the quality factory on Fulgora is mostly full, so it's not a critical problem. And we're going to get stack inserters soon, and I might fill it with stack inserters, and that might fix all of our problems. Although, it's foundations we really need to fix our train problems. Anyway, what we need to do now is get off of this planet and go get those stack inserters. It's the next stage. Now, quality. Not 100% how quality is going to go on Gleba. This is going to be a new experience. It's going to be a full Monty version, because we're not confined by space. We can fill in lakes, we can knock down cliffs, we can remove Penta's nests. You know, we can build whatever factory we want. We're not confined by anything. It's like Novice, to be honest. We don't need foundations for anything. So we can do a full Monty. And because we've only got a limited suite of ingredients, you know, we're not talking about 20, 30 different things. All of the things we really talk about are spoilage items. They're the only things we really care about. We're not dealing with a huge factory. So I am hopeful that it won't be too bad, but I haven't really experimented with quality on Gleba, so yeah, we just have to see what happens. But let's jump on a ship. Let's do it. No point waiting around. Oof. So I'm guessing, I haven't edited it yet, but that was probably quite a long montage of stuff. I wanted to get to a point in the factory where stuff was moving, because Gleba is, you know, is Gleba, and there's several overlapping systems here, and it's going to be much easier for me to explain it if the factory is operating. But that just meant that I've had to build the whole thing in order for the time lapse to make. We are here. I've got a factory. It's moving. We're kind of in a holding pattern at the moment. We have this issue when we're starting up a factory with. Well, I have this issue with not enough seeds. Now this is when I came to Gleba, I was kind of in two minds. You know, I could either go away for a few hours and build a small little factory that did a little thing, and then use that little factory to make the big factory. But I kind of felt like the time spent building the little one was just wasted time. I may as well just get on with the big factory. But in doing so, you know, if I had a little factory running, I would have loads and loads of seeds in a box, because that factory would have been going for a long time. But I didn't, and so I'm kind of stuck waiting for this thing to kind of build up the seeds that we need in order to kind of to fill the farm so that we've got a regular supply of the fruits. You know, it's just we're just kind of in waiting at the moment. I've got the time-lapse recording at like 1 frame per minute because we are going to be here for several hours, and I can't take the camera anywhere else. Anyway, that's where we are right now. Let's go through let's go through the overlapping systems that I just mentioned. You know, Gleba is, in my mind, this really delicate ballet of things happening on top of each other. And I want to just go through them. So this is the first one, the starter part of the factory. You know, the necessity of this part, in my mind, is solely due to the fact that we have to, at some place in the factory, make nutrients from spoilage. We've got to start somewhere, and we don't really want to do it big scale because it's very costly, and the spoilage, the nutrients that we get out, are rubbish. So, you know, the idea of trying to start up a big factory like this with the spoilage to nutrients recipe, it's just going to suck up every nutrient that we send at it, and it's not going to really give us all that much production at the end of the day. It's going to take a long time for it to build. It may never get started. You may just in fact, we're just going to run out of spoilage. It's just going to want more and more spoilage, and we're just going to run out of it. Anyway. So we need a little starter factory that's only going to use this one recipe for a short period of time. We're going to make the bioflux that the rest of the factory needs. We're going to make the nutrients that the rest of the factory needs. And once the factory is going, we can then turn this off. So, I mean, I have actually played around with this starter factory in other Let's Plays and versions and what have you. And I've tried to find the perfect set of circuit conditions to get this to turn on and off at exactly the right moments when the factory needs it to, and I am still yet to find a better method than just removing the conveyor belt. You know, just physically stopping the spoilage from entering the system. You know, at the end of the day, we should only need this once. In theory, we use it once, we start the factory, and then we turn it off. So hopefully, anyway, if I need it, I have to come back and turn it on. That's the starter factory. Now, the most important part of this little starter factory is the nutrients, and this is one of those overlapping systems, and it's probably the most dominant one in the factory. You know, it's dictated the whole structure, and it's really, the system is how we distribute the nutrients around the factory, because these things, they don't last very long. We need a lot of them, and we basically need them everywhere. So how we choose to distribute these nutrients around really kind of has such an overbearing effect, or at least it has on my version of this anyway. So the starter factory makes the first nutrients, and then from there, every nutrient, every biochamber it reaches feeds the next one. I'm kind of daisy chaining the nutrient process. So we have nutrients come in. This one, it feeds the next one in the line along to the left, and it feeds the next one in the line along to upwards, and then this one feeds the next one in the line upwards as well, but it also feeds the factory line. So yeah, it feeds the factory line, we feed the next one, this one feeds the factory line, feeds the next one, feeds the factory line, etc, etc, until we get to the end, and then this one just feeds 2 factory lines. And all of them feed off of this same bioflux belt, this feed belt, which is on a loop, so that we can extract any spoiled bioflux as and when it happens. And this system, it dictates everything. Absolutely everything. You know, we've now got, this is now the block. We've got the nutrient line on the right. We've got the nutrient line on the left. So the same kind of daisy chaining, the same loop, except we're now feeding off of both sides of the loop, or at least we will once I start turning the rest of the factory on. Then we have factory, and then we have the main bus that feeds the rest of the material in. It just dictates everything, but it works so excellently. I mean, it's a complicated ballet, as I said. You know, everything's got to perform its function as and when we need it to, in order for it to feed the next one, which has got to perform its function as and when it needs it to, and the start of the factory has got to feed the first one, and you know, all of this has got to happen, and each section of it is quite simple. You know, this is just one machine controlled by a couple of combinators, which is, you know, it's basically detecting how many spoilage is on this line, how many spoilage on this line, and I've said it, I want 5 on this line, and I want 5 on this line, and then it will just achieve that as and when it chooses to. It will kick out any spoilage that it don't want no more. It's excellent, but the cost is that it dictates everything. It's the whole structure of the factory is now dictated by this. You know, I ordinarily like to fit blocks into shapes so that I can fill a factory no matter what shape and size it is. You know, I can squeeze and stretch, but these systems, they're not squeezable or stretchable. They just are. Like, whatever solution you choose to come up with for distributing this stuff around the factory really determines the structure and the performance of the factory. But this is just my version, I suppose. Now, the nutrients are just one other system. We've obviously got another system which is distributing around the bioflux. So, I mean, this stuff, we produce it, it comes out. We want it to go right. When it goes right, this feeds that process. So we feed this process with whatever bioflux it needs. And then eventually, when we want to start extracting some of it for productive purposes, I will connect this conveyor belt and it will start shifting it left to, you know, bacteria and whatnot, all the other things that we need. So, and oh yeah, and I'm controlling how much bioflux is on the loop at any one time. Trying to keep it to 100. In my mind, I'm not 100% sure that it makes much difference. You know, in my mind, we could fill this conveyor belt with bioflux. I'm not sure it would make all that much difference, but it makes me feel better to have it controlled in this way. It looks good. Anyway, that is the bioflux recipe. Just a horrible but efficient way of doing it. Now, we are, as I said, we're just kind of waiting around now. The seeds are an issue in their own right. Alright, so what I proceed to do here is completely butcher my explanation of the seed issue. So I'm going to get my brain in order and start do it again in post, which is where we are right now, particularly as it pertains to quality. Right. We can process fruits in an assembly machine. When we do so, we take 50 fruits and it will give us a single seed. However, in order to make the fruits in the first place, it takes the exact same amount of seeds to make the fruit. So we take a seed, we put it in the ground, we get 50 fruits, we process those fruits through an assembly machine, and then we get a single seed back again. In order to maintain the balance, we have to process every single fruit that we get. If any of that fruit spoils, then we won't get the seeds that it took to make those fruits in the first place. And we kind of enter this doom loop scenario. You know, imagine if we start out with like 100 fruits and we have a process which loses 10% of those fruits every time it runs. You know, we run those fruits through a process and we get 90 worth of seeds back again. We run that again and we get 81, you know, every time we lose 10%. And we eventually arrive at a point where the amount of seeds in the system is reducing and it never can increase. It never can increase with an assembly machine because we only ever get what we put in. Now, the alternative, and probably the most obvious solution, and, you know, the whole purpose of this planet is to do it in a biochamber. Because a biochamber gives us a 50% production benefit. So now we only need 33 fruits in order to generate a seed instead of the 50. It takes 2/3. However, we still have to process 2/3 of those fruits in order to maintain that same seed balance. If we process more fruits than 2/3, then we get a seed profit. And if we process less than 2/3, then we make a seed loss and potentially enter into this seed doom loop that I was talking about with the assembly machine. Now, we can fill this with productivity modules, and that will make a difference. But not enough of a difference to make quality worthwhile. So, the idea of the fruits is that we have no quality versions of them. The planters pick out 1-dot versions out of the ground. That's all we get to work with. The only way that we can generate quality fruits is by recycling them. But let's just take those 100 fruits that we were talking about before and we just recycle them once. We instantly get to 25%. And remember the numbers that I was talking about before? In order to maintain seed profit with the biochambers, we need to be at 66%. Now, I have got some productivity modules. I've got some pretty decent ones because I'm working with quality here. These ones here. So these ones give us productivity of 9% per module. And with all of with a biochamber packed with these modules, I'm able to achieve about 1.9, I think it is. So I'm about, what's the number? Where's my calculator? 50 divided by 1.9. 26 fruits. 52%. So I can, in order to maintain balance, my number isn't 66%, it's 52% with these modules. But in order to get it to work with recyclers, assuming, you know, when we're trying to upgrade in quality, assuming that we only recycle the fruits once, we need to get that number down to 25%. But if we only recycle them once, we're still going to get 1-dot versions out of it. So let's just assume we recycle all of the 1-dot versions and we end up with, say, 10%. So we start out with 100 1-dot fruits and we end up with 10 various 2, 3, 4 and 5-dot fruits. Well, now we're at 10%. We need to get the 52% that I'm at here down to 10% in order to make the seed balance not deplete itself by instantly recycling the fruits. And that is a 5 times magnitude increase on where we are right now. You know, we are at about 50%. In order to get it to where that needs to be, we need to get it to 10%. So we need 5 times more productivity in the productivity modules. And I know that I've not got the best ones. What do the best ones give us? 25% per module. So this would be 100%. So we'd be at... Oh, I'm putting myself on the spot here. We're at about 50. So that'd be double what we're right now. So that would be 25 fruits. So I suppose that would get us to about the point where if we just recycled the fruits once, it would make sense. But not for all quality. And I feel like that's the whole point of recycling the fruits, is that we want to put it. We just want. I mean, isn't that the point that we just use the legendary ones? But what I'm saying is that if we take all of those 1-dot fruits and process them all into the just legendary, let's say it's 1%, which is conservative. We now to get from 50%, which is where I am right now, to 1%, which is like 50 times. It's just not possible in my mind to do quality, you know, by recycling the fruits, because it will inevitably lead to a seed deficit. Now, the only way to get this to work would be to have a normal 1-dot, normal quality factory, we grow a certain number of fruits. We take 2/3 of them and we send that to a normal maybe 3/4. We send that to a normal, factory, and then we send the other quarter that we've got left behind to some kind of upcycling facility, because then we'd be at 75%, and we could use the gap between 75% and 66% with no modules, or 75% and 50% with the modules that I'm using, as our tolerance, as our gap, as our bit in our back pocket to allow for spoilage. But it's not possible to just do everything that way for quality, because the seeds will run out. Okay, that's my bit. I'm done. Let's get back to what I was talking about, or at least the impromptu bit when I talked to Mike. Yeah, let's go back. But that's where we are right now. We're waiting for seeds. I am going to turn on the rest of in fact, let's have a quick wander around the rest of the factory. It's not on. It will be on at some point. We've got bacteria here. There's going to be quality in here too. I don't know how successful this will be. What? I think we've had some issues along the way. This is not legendary bioflux. That's what that's meant to be, or 4 dot anyway. It's all here, ready to go. Not 100% confident. I feel like the systems at play here are way too complex for me to get it right first time, because I've not tried quality in bacteria before. I mean, the idea is we're going to process the fruits. No quality in here. We don't really need quality in here. That just complicates things. Then we're going to make the bacteria which starts the process. I am going to put quality in here. That's going to feed its way down. The 1 dot will feed its way into the bacteria. All the other qualities will find its way down into the second block. If this process kicks out quality, we only want 1 dot to cycle round. So if it kicks out quality more than that, then it comes out here, and then this kind of joins with what does it join? Oh, the ore splits off, and then it joins with a loop. Yeah, there we go. Joins with a loop that runs around all the machines. So this is like a dumping ground for any bacteria that's happened to be upgraded along the way. I ordinarily do these with lots of individual belts, and I lost a little bit of heart. And to be honest, we're talking about such small quantities of bacteria here, and these things are going to expire in poof. They're going to just be gone. I was like, how seriously do I really want to take this bacteria? At the end of the day, if I make any quality here, I'll be happy. I'm going to be putting quality everywhere. Anywhere that this ore goes to is going to have quality in it. So, we're going to be processing, we're going to be using calcite, I suppose, for the 1 dot ore. 2, 3, 4, and 5 ore that we get out of here is just going to go to furnaces with quality in it. And we're going to be qualitying every step along the way. So, in quality equivalence, thinking about it, quality equivalent, ordinarily, in order to get to iron ore, we only get one opportunity to quality it. And that's in the mining drills. But in Gleba, by the time we've got to iron ore, we've had like 3 or 4 processes. Thinking about it, it's all about the bioflux. The bacteria is probably a good opportunity in a lot of different ways, but it really all comes down to delivering the quality bioflux along the way. It's all well and good producing a legendary piece of bacteria, which you could put in a machine and potentially generate infinite amounts of legendary bacteria from there, but you also need infinite amounts of the bioflux. And although we're going to be making a lot of it, I'm just skeptical. I've built it. We're going to find out. We'll see. Next, we've got a whole medley of processes really here, to be honest. Just a whole bunch of little things that I know we're going to need. So, sulfur. Is that by this? I think some flows have kind of found their way in here. Well, there's some things that aren't quite right. This isn't turned on. It's all good. Sulfur, lube, rocket fuel. Now, I've got quite a significant amount of rocket fuel here because I'm going to try and power a lot of the base from it. At some point in time, we're going to need some pretty chunky defenses. Tesla turrets, other devices, the amount of spores we're going to be creating, the amount of attention we could potentially get from these pentas. Anyway, then we have plastics again with quality. These other stages I haven't done quality. You know, lube, no point. Sulfur, no point. Rocket fuel, no point doing quality. Plastic, very, very much, very good point. So we got it here. And then we've got carbon fiber. I've taken carbon fiber very seriously. I want a lot of this stuff. My last run, I was making a lot of foundations, and a lot of it was being held up by carbon fiber. So I'm not taking that risk again. We're overdoing it. I suspect this will mean that we are critical on something else. We are doing quality as well. I want quality things. The carbon fiber quality, where does carbon fiber go? There's a good question. Let's have a quick look. Stack inserters, I suppose. Quantum processors. Rocket turrets for spiders. That would be nice. All quality. I mean, we're doing all quality, so all of it's nice. Yeah, carbon fiber. And then that's the end. Or at least that's what I've built. You know, we've got the same on the bottom half. It's pretty much identical. It's going to do the exact same job. It's going to get turned on as we turn on more and more of these trains, as we get more and more seeds, and we can build more and more farms. The waiting game has begun. What I need to do, I suppose we need to just wait here for a little while. I can't really move the camera until I filled up the rest of the factory. So we're on hold on Gleba. Let's have a look at the other planets. Fulgora. Now, I didn't actually get to I didn't make it back to upgrade the trains. Oh, it's broken again. Oh, it was working fine. You know, this was working fine not that long ago. It was keeping up. Now it's not doing that again. I've bottlenecked it, so now it's doing half. We are now doing half of the strap processing that I would like, and still problemos. I don't know. This island is less of a less concerning to me. Let's have a look at the other island. Yeah, fragments. So really, this has a lot more potential to take more stuff. If we could find a way to send more, I need to find my way back here and do a proper train upgrade, just as an experiment. Oh, this whole is unsatisfying. Let's have a look in the important boxes. We got a full box of these. We got another full box of these. We got a lot more. We got a lot of these, but I still can't really use them until we've got stack inserters. We're still waiting on those. All right, let's have a look at Vulcanus. This is bad. Just absolutely rock solid. It's so bad that it stopped me being able to get any rockets because it's blocked up my low density structure. This is all gummed up now, so. And this is going to be a right old pain in the backside to clear out. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to fill it up with stack inserters. And then I'm going to just continually remove... I'm going to stop all these inputs. And I'm going to continue to remove material until it's running. And then I'm going to leave it to clear out all of the stuff that's in here. And then I'll turn it back on again. This is going to be a long-term problem. It's going to take a few hours to fix. Right. I think that's enough of me talking. We need to call this episode a day. Next one, we're going to do more Gleba. With an outside potential of going to a kilo. Outside. Very, very, don't know. We've got so many things to fix. You know, once I finish here, I could spend a significant amount of time sorting out the problems that I've accumulated. So, okay. I will see you in the next one.